Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Finally, the Russians updated their front update on Sputnik, so I will have my daily update with whatever happens over there on the front in Ukraine. I have Ukrainska Pravda and I have Sputnik. You who watch me regularly know how this works. The Ukrainians are, having a certain kind of way of describing their update like this in a written format, and the Russians have it in a map format like this with a little different bullets colored, each bullet means something. So, the Ukrainians are going to start with a summary, because I'm going to start with the Ukrainians summary about what happens in general here in Ukraine, and then they on the front. And then they will start with telling us what happens in the north, and then go here in the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv, and then they go in the east right here, and then they go in the southeast, and then in the south. So they go left to right. So let's start with the Ukrainians. Let's see where that is. Right here. So, Ukrainska Pravda. Russian forces are on the offensive near Bakhmut and Marinka. 30 combat engagements occurred today, General Staff report. So, Marinka and Bakhmut. I thought that Bakhmut was already done, and not only already done, if you remember, the Ukrainians said that they are attacking the flanks in Bakhmut. Bakhmut belongs to the Russians, as of now, which is, they call it Artemovsk. So, Artemovsk is, where is it? They changed the whole thing, right here. Nothing here. This is Artemovsk. So, and the big map like this is right in the middle right here. This is Artemovsk. And this is the city, the town, which the Russians, the Wagner group, took it. And the Ukrainians said that they are going around it. But now they stopped. So they said they advanced on this. The Russians, is that what they said? Are near Bakhmut. The Russian forces are on the offensive near Bakhmut, which is correct fantastically. Near Bakhmut right here. And the other thing is, and Marinka. Let's see where Marinka and Bakhmut are. Alright, we know Bakhmut. Let's see what the Russians are saying about this. The Yug battle group during the course of the operation successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops. So this guy saying, on the contrary, the Ukrainians are attacking. So the Ukraine says, no, the Russians are attacking. Alright, and then we go to Marinka, which is south of this. This is Avdiivka, where the Russians are going to surround it. And Marinka is right here. So let's see what the Russians say about Marinka. Battles are raging in the city. And here is the blue little dots here. Bullets are when the Ukrainians are shelling Russian positions. So Ukrainian forces fired 5 155mm shells at the village. And here probably a drone was blown up. Yes, the Russian air defense shot down 2 Ukrainian drones. The yellow ones represent drones. The red ones, Russians shelling, or Russian destroyed some Ukrainian reconnaissance or sabotage groups. Alright, so just so you know what's going on here, is just shelling. The Ukrainians are shelling Russia. Proper Russia, not, the disputed. Let's go to the Ukrainians. Russian occupation forces are on the offensive of Bakhmut and Marinka fronts. This is according to 1800 on July 13, so 6 p.m. July 13. Over the course of the day, Ukrainian aircraft carried out 14 airstrikes on areas where Russian military personnel were concentrated. Units of Ukraine's rocket forces and artillery struck 2 clusters of Russian military personnel and equipment and 5 field artillery units. Russian forces launched a missile and a drone strike on Ukraine. To this end, they deployed 3 S-300 guided anti-aircraft missiles and 20 Iranian-made Shahid drones, attacking blah 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 blue 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 in Sumy, Donetsk, and Zaporizhzhia. So, Sumy is right here, Donetsk is right here, and Zaporizhzhia is right here. So in this area and in Sumy, I don't see anything that the Russians will say around here. Alright, so let's go back to the Ukrainians. Ukraine's Air Force and anti-aircraft personnel and assets from other units of Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 14 Shahed attack drones. Now, Russian forces also conducted 44 airstrikes and deployed multiple launch rocket systems, MLRS, in more than 50 further attacks on positions of Ukrainian troops and civilian settlements. Russia continues to focus its main efforts on the Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka. So, those are right here. So, Liman is right here. This is Liman. Then you got Bakhmut, which we already went over there right here. Right here is Bakhmut. And then you got Avdiivka and you got Marinka. So this is where the Ukrainians say the Russians are concentrating their attacks. This area here on the front. Alright, and now they start talking about the north. The operation situation on the Volyn and Polisia fronts remains much the same as before. There is no evidence that Russia is forming new offensive units on these fronts. Units of Belarusian forces are carrying out operations in the areas near the Ukrainian border. Units of the Russian armed forces that had completed training in Belarus are now being transferred and will take part in hostilities in Ukraine. Now they go a little bit to the east. Russia continues to maintain its forces in the Zaporizhzhia and Slobozhzhia fronts. Russian aircraft struck the city of Sumy and areas in the vicinity of Sumy Oblast. Russian forces also deployed mortars and artillery to fire on more than 10 civilian settlements in Kharkiv Oblast and in Sumy Oblast. So they say that the Russians bombarded this oblast, Sumy, nothing here, and Kharkiv right here, nothing. It's just the Ukrainians. This is already Ukrainians shelling the Russians, according to the Russians. And this is where the Russians bombarded something. So let's see what they say here. Units of Zapad battle group hammered Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. This one is, let's go like that. Alright, the same. They also thwarted the activity of Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. And here, units of Zapad battle group hammered Ukrainian troops and using air and artillery strikes. If I read all these things, it's going to be the Ukrainians shelling civilian population and villages. Let's see this one. Okay, so it says reported 2 explosive drop from a Ukrainian drone. There were no casualties or damage. Let's say this one again. Dropped 5 explosives from drones on the outskirts of the village. There were no casualties or damage. So that's what the Russians say the Ukrainians did over there. Very strange. That's in Russia. Okay, let's go to the Ukrainian article. So we go to on the Kupiansk front. So Kupiansk, Russian forces deployed mortars and artillery to fire on Kharkiv Oblast, came under Russian fire. So in Kupiansk is right here. Kupiansk, if I remember correctly, right here is Kupiansk. And the Ukrainians say that they attack. Well, I just said what's going on here when let's say here, units of the Zapad battle group hammered Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. And back to the Ukrainians. More than 10 civilian settlements came under fire on the Liman front. We already know where Liman is, north of Bakhmut. On the Bakhmut front, Russian forces made unsuccessful attempts. The Russians say, on the contrary, we stopped the Ukrainians. It should be the other way around. The Russians should say, we attacked, and the other one should say, we... Anyway, attempts to advance to the southwest of the west of Bakhmut, to the southwest of Orikovo-Vasiliivka, and to the west of Bakhmut. More than 10 civilian settlements came under Russian fire, including Bilahora in Donetsk Oblast and Shahir Yar. These are to the west of Bakhmut. So here is Bakhmut. This is Shahir Yar, and that's, I already read this one here, and they say that they repelled the Ukrainian attacks. Okay, we're gonna move down to Avdiivka. On the Avdiivka front, Russian forces also shelled over 10 civilian settlements. Okay, despite Russian airstrikes and shelling on the Marinka front, which is lower. So remember, this is Bakhmut here, then you go Avdiivka, and you go Marinka, and then you go Here used to go Vuhledar. I see now that's 3 more extra. So we're going to see what those are. So this, despite the airstrikes and shelling on the Marinka front, Ukraine's defense forces repelled all 14 Russian assaults in the vicinity of Marinka. The Russians shelled more than 10 settlements. That's in Donetsk Oblast. Now we go a little bit south than that. On the Shakhtarsk front, Russian forces conducted an airstrike in the vicinity of Blahodatne, Donetsk Oblast. They also shelled Vuhledar, Bohoyavlenka, Blahodatne, Shakhtarske and Zolota Niva, Donetsk Oblast, among other civilian settlements. So let's see where those are, because I suspect they're right here, because I know Vuhledar is here. This is Valinska. Now remember, the Russians' names, this is a Russian map, are different than the Ukrainian names. So if the Ukrainian name says, okay, well, you destroyed Herovivka, probably the Russians call it Haparapa. And if I look over here for Herovika or whatever that is, I find Haparaka, but I don't know where there is. So anyway, let's see what the Russians say happened in these 3 locations where usually they meet face to face. The Vostok battle group, during the course of the operation, successfully repelled an attack by Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. Here, the same thing, used artillery strikes, and the same thing here. Nothing more. Now we move to Zaporizhzhia. This is Zaporizhzhia. The red things are probably the Russians claim that they destroyed some depots with arms, but let's go to the Ukrainian first and see what they say. Russian forces on the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, which is south of Zaporizhzhia, are focusing their efforts on preventing the advance of Ukrainian forces and shelled over 30 civilian settlements, including Pararap, including Kherson. So somehow the Russians are trying to stop the Ukrainian offensive in the south, in Zaporizhzhia and Kherson. Let's see what these guys are saying. So that is here. This is what these guys were talking about. So let's see what this red stuff are the Russians. Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine's 23rd Mechanized Brigade, right here. Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine's 65th Mechanized Brigade, and here Russian forces eliminated a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. Here, Russian forces struck troops and military equipment. Here, they shot down a drone. Here, they struck down a drone, and here the Ukrainians had fired HIMARS rockets loaded with staple anti-personnel ammunition at the city, right here. All right. So this is what happened in this area in Zaporizhzhia, according to the Russians. And now we go to the Kherson. Here, now this used to be the reservoir of the Dnieper River here. Energodar is here. The nuclear power plant, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I just do this because this is all drained. It's zero, no more. And here, like Kharkovka, here it used to be the dam, right here, where this is. This road crossing here, that's no more. So this is where the thing blew up. All that is flooded, or was flooded, and this is now more where you see it here. So let's see what these guys are saying in Kherson. The Russians say that they defeated Ukrainian troops. Battle group, units of the Dnieper battle group defeated Ukrainian troops. 10 Ukrainian soldiers were killed and another 6 were wounded. Right here, and then here. Units of the Dnieper battle group struck a temporary deployment point of Ukrainian troops. 9 Ukrainian soldiers were killed and another 6 were wounded. 2 military vehicles were put out of action. And here, Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine's 126th Separate Territorial Defense Brigade. Now I know that if I'm reading what the Russians say the Ukrainians did, they just shell civilians and that's it. Ukrainian forces shelled the village, civilian infrastructure using cannon artillery. Let's go here. The same thing, shelled the city using cannon artillery, and probably here drones. 1 drone down, and here they says that Ukrainian forces, yes, and our defense shot down the Ukrainian drones. So drones, explosives, and that's it with this. This is the update, a general update on what's going on macro on the Ukrainian front. Don't trust any of these two guys, but this is what we have. This is the party we're going to join. Otherwise, we're going to get the Americans. The Americans tell us what the Ukrainians said. They're never going to tell us what the Russians say. So they lie, all of them lie. But hey, this is it. If you got other information that is telling the truth, let me know so I can go and check it out. Anyway, my friends, little by little, we're going to figure out how the front moves left or right. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.